Welcome, friends. Tonight, we're taking a step away from the present and moving carefully into the past. This is an invitation to learn, to observe, and to rest, all at the same time. As you settle in, allow your breathing to slow. You're not here to rush. You're here to explore a different world, one that shaped the identity of an entire civilization. This is ancient Rome, and more specifically, the world of the gladiators. Before we begin their story, it helps to understand the world they lived in. So let's start there, at the foundation. "2,000 years ago, Rome stood at the center of a vast empire. Its territories stretched across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Trade ships filled its harbors, legions guarded its borders, and nearly 1 million people lived within the capital city alone, a number unmatched in the Western world. For centuries, daily life in Rome was a mixture of order and spectacle. Citizens visited public baths, shopped in markets, and gathered in forums to hear speeches or news. But Romans also valued entertainment on a massive scale. They built amphitheaters, circuses, and arenas almost everywhere they settled. These structures were meant to bring the population together, offer distraction, and reinforce Roman values, such as bravery, discipline, and endurance. The largest and most famous of these arenas was the Colosseum, completed in the 1st century. It could hold approximately 50,000 people. Its design was advanced for its time. Multiple entrances, tiered seating, elaborate stairways, and an underground system of rooms and corridors, known as the Hypogeum. Above ground, the public saw a clean layer of sand spread across the arena floor. Below ground, however, the preparations were complex. There were elevators for animals, storage areas for weapons, holding cells for performers, and tunnels that connected the arena to nearby buildings. This infrastructure supported a broad range of events. Animal hunts took place in the morning. Public executions were scheduled around midday, and in the afternoon, the main attraction began: the gladiatorial combats. Gladiators did not appear suddenly. Their lives were shaped long before they entered the arena. Many were prisoners of war, taken from regions conquered by Rome. Others were enslaved through debt or criminal punishment. A small percentage were free men who voluntarily signed contracts, seeking income or social recognition. Regardless of how they arrived, once chosen for the arena, they were sent to specialized training schools called ludi. These schools existed throughout the empire, but the most prominent in Rome was the Ludus Magnus, located just east of the Colosseum. A corridor connected the training complex directly to the arena, allowing fighters to move between the two without traveling through the public streets. Inside the Ludus Magnus, life was controlled and structured. Gladiators slept in shared quarters, trained daily with instructors, and lived under the authority of the lanista. The owner and manager of the school weapons were carefully assigned. Fighting styles were specialized. and diets were monitored, usually consisting of barley, beans, and vegetables to build endurance and bulk. Despite the harshness of their role, gladiators were not simply disposable. They required years of training and represented significant financial investment. For that reason, their care, medical treatment, and physical conditioning were taken seriously. Archaeological remains have shown evidence of skilled bone setting, surgical tools, and even rudimentary sports medicine practiced within gladiator communities. To the Roman public, gladiators were a blend of professional athlete, prisoner, and performer. Their lives reflected Rome's values: strength, discipline, and resilience under pressure. Their fates could change with skill, luck, or popular support. This is the world you're entering tonight. A real, documented, complex system that existed for centuries. A world built on structure and control, but also on skill and survival. A world far from our own, yet preserved in stone, records, and archaeological evidence. As we move deeper into their story, we will follow a clear path. How a person became a gladiator, how they lived, how they trained, how the games functioned, and how individuals navigated identity, relationships, and hope within that environment. So, take another slow breath. You now understand the world around the arena. Next, we explore what it meant to be brought into it. When you're ready, we begin with Chapter 1, Captured by Fate. From the roar of the Colosseum and the order of the Empire, the focus shifts to a single life, your life, and the moment it is claimed by Rome. Your experience as a gladiator does not begin in the arena. It begins earlier, at the point where control slips out of your hands and your future becomes something decided by others. In the Roman Empire, there are several ways this can happen. Some are sudden, some unfold slowly. All of them pull you onto a path you never imagined taking. For many, it starts on a battlefield. Rome's borders stretch across continents, and conflict is constant. If your homeland resisted Rome's expansion, you may have stood among those who fought, hoping to defend your people. But when Roman legions win, their victory is absolute. Survivors are taken captive, bound, marched for days, and brought to slave markets where bodies are assessed with practiced eyes. If you are young, healthy, and visibly strong, buyers take notice. And among them are agents of the lanista, the man who owns and manages a gladiator training school. To him, you are not a soldier or a civilian anymore. You are potential. Another path into this life begins not with war, but with debt. In ancient Rome, failing to repay what you owe can mean losing your freedom. A creditor may legally claim you as property, and from there, sell you to a buyer who sees value in your physical strength. It does not matter whether you once lived comfortably or struggled day to day. Debt erases that distinction. Punishment provides yet another path. Certain crimes, robbery, desertion, violent offences, carry severe penalties. Those sentenced ad ludem to the games do not enter this world through training or preparation. They are pushed into it by the weight of the law. There is one final way, rare but real. A small number of men choose the arena. Some are desperate for income. Some are seeking a different kind of future. Others want recognition they never found in ordinary life. If you are among them, you sign a contract willingly, fully aware of the risks. Whichever path you come from, all of them lead you to the same destination. A ludus, a gladiator, training school. Your arrival is not heroic or ceremonial. It is procedural. The first thing you notice inside the school is the sound. Wooden swords striking posts in steady repetition. The crunch of sandals in sand. The sharp commands of instructors correcting form gates close behind you. Their weight is unmistakable. It is the moment you understand that life outside these walls has ended for now. You are assessed immediately. Trainers measure your posture and balance. Physicians check your joints, your breathing, the strength of your hands. Whether you once held a plough, a shield, or a shopkeeper's tools does not matter here. What matters is your body and whether it can be trained. Your clothes are replaced. Your hair may be cut short. You are shown to the barracks, a shared room with straw bedding and a simple wooden chest. Men inside glance at you with different expressions: curiosity, caution, difference. They have seen newcomers arrive many times before. Night in the ludus is unfamiliar. There is a stiffness in the air, a mixture of sweat, oil, and the dust from the training yard. Some men whisper stories of upcoming events. Others fall asleep quickly, saving their strength for tomorrow. You lie awake longer than most, trying to understand where you now belong. But in the morning, routine takes over. Meals are predictable. Training is structured. Movement is regulated. The lanista oversees everything with the perspective of a businessman who has invested in you. In time, a shift begins inside you. It happens quietly, almost without notice. Your body adjusts to the schedule. Your mind adjusts to the rules. You begin observing the other fighters more closely. The veterans who move with confidence. The instructors whose commands are short but effective. The recruits who struggle to keep pace. You learn which mistakes draw punishment, which tasks earn approval, and which fighters can be approached without conflict. Slowly, your identity reshapes itself. Not fully, not permanently, but enough that the person who arrived at the gates is no longer the same person who wakes up on your second or third morning. Your life has not yet reached the arena, but it has taken its first step toward it. Captured, redirected, or willingly signed into this world, you now stand inside the system that will train you, test you, and ultimately decide your fate. And this is where your true transformation begins. Life inside the Ludus, the Gladiator training school, quickly becomes the center of your world. The outside city, with its markets, temples, and crowded streets, is only a distant murmur you occasionally hear beyond the walls. Your reality is contained here, within a structured environment built for discipline and survival. The Ludus Magnus, the largest and most prominent training school in Rome, is carefully designed. It operates not as a prison, but as a controlled community. Its architecture reflects purpose, efficiency, order, and constant supervision. As you move through its spaces, you begin to understand how it functions. The heart of the school is the central courtyard. It is wide, open, and covered in tightly packed sand. This is where much of your daily life unfolds. Gladiators train here, spar here, and sometimes argue here. It is the place where skill is built and tested long before anyone steps into the Colosseum. Surrounding the courtyard are the barracks. The rooms are simple: wooden bunks, shared chests, and little decoration. You sleep shoulder to shoulder with men whose origins, languages, and histories are different from yours. Some were soldiers, some were farmers, some were criminals. But now, all of you are part of the same system. In the early days, you observe more than you speak. This is how new fighters learn the unspoken rules: who commands respect, who to avoid, and who quietly helps others adapt. One of the first things you notice is the hierarchy. It is not written down, but everyone knows it. Veteran gladiators, men who have survived multiple fights, hold authority. Their advice matters. Their silence matters even more. The instructors, called doctores, are former fighters themselves. They teach weapon skills, footwork, defense, and the performance aspect of combat. Their instructions are practical and exact. They train you to move not only with strength, but with control, because in the arena, the crowd notices everything. Beyond the barracks and courtyard, there is a small internal arena, a miniature version of the Colosseum. This is where staged practice combats take place. You learn how to pace yourself in a confined space, how to manage distance, and how to read an opponent's rhythm. There is also the armory. Before sunrise, its doors open, revealing racks of helmets, shields, and weapons. Unlike the sharp blades used in the arena, training weapons are often made of wood or blunted metal. This does not make them harmless. A moment of carelessness here can lead to weeks of pain later. Meals are served at regular intervals. The diet is surprisingly structured. Barley, beans, vegetables, dried fruit, and occasional meat. It is designed to build muscle and endurance, not speed. In fact, Roman writers often referred to gladiators as barley men, a nickname earned through this heavy, energy-rich diet. Over time, you begin noticing the rhythm of the school, the sound of sandals on stone in the early morning, the clang of metal at midday, the quiet conversations before nightfall. Patterns emerge, faces become familiar. The routine, while demanding, becomes strangely stabilizing. Inside this world, relationships form naturally. Some fighters become close allies. Men who understand the same rules, who share the same challenges, and who might one day stand beside you in the arena tunnels. Others keep their distance, some out of caution, some out of pride, some because they know how unpredictable this life can be. Still, camaraderie develops. It is difficult to explain to someone who has never lived in a place like this, but the bonds forged here are shaped by shared hardship. You train together, you eat together, you feel the same exhaustion in your muscles at the end of each day. It creates a quiet connection, not always spoken, but always felt. Despite the strictness of the school, there are moments of normality. You hear laughter from men playing a game of dice near the barracks. Someone tells a story from their childhood. A veteran shares advice about handling a new fighting style. For brief moments, the weight of the future feels lighter, yet there is always a reminder of what lies ahead. The walls of the ludus are high. The gates are locked. Freedom is not something you can walk toward. It is something you must earn. You also begin to understand that the ludus is not only a place of training, but also a business. Your survival matters to the Lanista because your performance in the arena directly affects the reputation and income of the school. This practical reality shapes the instruction you receive. They want you skilled. They want you prepared. They want you alive, if only to fight again. As days turn into weeks, the environment that once felt foreign becomes familiar. Not comfortable, but familiar. You begin to settle into the identity the school shapes for you. Not fully a gladiator yet, but no longer the person who first arrived at these gates. Within these walls, you now live, train, and sleep. This is your community, your workplace, your holding place between life and danger. And whether you chose this life or not, the House of the Gladiators has become the center of your world. Your real transformation begins the first time you step into the training yard as a trainee, not as an arrival. This is where the school stops feeling like a place you were brought to and starts becoming the place where your new identity is shaped. Training is not merely exercise. It is a system refined over centuries, a science of turning ordinary men into highly trained combat performers. Everything you learn here has purpose. The first lesson is stance. Not striking, not blocking, but simply how to position your feet and distribute your weight. A poor stance means imbalance, and imbalance in the arena leads to defeat. Your instructor corrects your posture by tapping your ankles with a wooden staff, nudging you into proper alignment. You discover that fighting is less about strength and more about geometry, angles, leverage, and timing. Next, you learn how to move. not randomly, but in patterns the Romans perfected. A calculated step forward, a deliberate retreat, a circular pivot to control distance. Your arms may tire quickly, but your legs must never fail you. After footwork, your training shifts into weapon specialization. And this is where the path of a gladiator becomes surprisingly complex. You do not choose your weapon class. The trainers choose for you, assessing your body and natural tendencies. Your height, arm length, and agility determine everything. If your build is solid and grounded, you may be assigned as a murmillo with a heavy shield and short sword. This role relies on stability and endurance, pushing forward, absorbing strikes, controlling the center. If you are quicker and more agile, the trainers might mold you into a Thraex, fighting with a curved blade and a small, maneuverable shield. This style depends on speed, close angles, and unpredictable movement. Some trainees, lighter and fast on their feet, are trained as retiarii, net fighters with a trident. They stay at a distance, using reach and rhythm, darting in and out while avoiding direct contact. Every role is a system, almost like learning a profession, and each must complement another gladiator on the opposite side of the arena. These pairings, Murmillo versus Thraex, Secutor versus Retiarius, are deliberate, balanced, designed to create tension and excitement. Your instructors teach you not only how to use your weapon, but how your opponent's weapon works. To fight well, you must understand what the man across from you is trained to do. Instructors demonstrate techniques slowly. First, then increase speed. They show you how to angle your shield to redirect a strike, how to counter a feint, how to target vulnerable areas of armor, and how to conserve energy without appearing passive. You learn that your eyes matter as much as your arms. Watching the shoulders, the hips, the rhythm of breathing, these cues reveal intention long before the attack comes. There is also a part of training that newcomers never expect: performance. In the arena, the crowd must be able to see what is happening. A strike delivered too tightly to the body may be effective, but it is invisible to spectators. Your instructors correct this. They teach you to exaggerate certain movements, to turn your torso just enough for the audience to understand the action, to fight in a way that is both real and readable. A successful gladiator does not merely win. He must also entertain. You practice sequences called rudimenta, basic forms repeated again and again until your movements become predictable to the instructors and reliable to you. Then the combinations become more complex. Block, counter, step, pivot, feint left, strike right. Draw the opponent in, turn their aggression against them. This training sharpens not only your body, but your instincts. You begin recognizing patterns, anticipating reactions, responding faster than you can consciously think. There is no discussion of your past life here, no questions about where you came from or what you once did. In this yard, your identity is defined entirely by your progress, your adaptability, and the skill you develop. Every moment of training is directed toward a single goal, preparing you for the unknown opponent you will one day face beneath the open sky, an opponent who trained just as hard, under instructors just as demanding, with the same hope of survival. You are not yet ready for the arena, but as the days accumulate, as movements become habitual, as reflexes sharpen, as your assigned weapon begins to feel familiar in your grip, you begin to understand the truth of the life you're entering. Gladiators are not reckless fighters. They are trained specialists, disciplined performers, combatants who must balance technique, instinct, and the expectations of thousands of spectators. And now, slowly but unmistakably, you are becoming one of them. The moment you begin real training, you discover something important. Gladiator. Life is not defined only by discipline or technique. It is shaped just as much by pain. How often you feel it, how you respond to it, and how you learn to move through it without hesitation. Pain is not a sign of failure here. It is expected, studied, and managed with surprising precision. It begins subtly, a strained wrist from gripping your weapon too tightly, a bruise on your ribs from misjudging an incoming strike, the dull ache in your legs that appears after hours of footwork drills. No instructor comforts you. They observe, correct, and continue. They know that in the arena, pain will not pause the fight. The first true lesson in pain comes during early sparring. Your opponent is another trainee, someone learning just as you are. But even a blunted weapon can sting sharply when it catches you off guard. The shock of the hit surprises you. Your body reacts before your mind has time to process it. You stumble, instinctively touching the sore spot, as if disbelief might erase it. Your instructor stops the exercise only long enough to make one point. Hesitation is more dangerous than the blow itself. You learn quickly that the body can absorb far more than you once imagined. The bruises you collect become maps of progress, each one showing a mistake you corrected, or a reaction you must improve. When injuries are more serious, you are taken to the school's healer. He is not a modern physician, but he is skilled, trained in practical methods, developed through years of treating fighters. You watch him work as he examines a dislocated shoulder, gently rotating the arm until it slips back into place, with a sound that makes you wince despite yourself. He cleans wounds with vinegar, applies herbal salves to reduce swelling, and uses splints to stabilize fractures. It is efficient, not gentle, but it keeps men fighting. You soon learn that the healer is one of the most respected figures in the ludus, not because he prevents pain, but because he helps you return to training capable of facing it again. Pain does not only come from physical injury, it also comes from exhaustion, from pushing your body past the point where you think it should stop, from the mental strain of trying to master techniques you had never seen before arriving here. There is a moment. Every trainee experiences it. When you question whether you can endure this life, it often comes during a drill. You've repeated 100 times. Your shoulders burn, your knees tremble, your lungs feel heavy, and you realize there is no end in sight. This moment is important. It is the point where the mind must adapt. Gladiator trainers understand this. They watch for it, not to punish, but to see who rises and who retreats. You find yourself adjusting in ways you wouldn't have predicted. You learn to breathe through discomfort rather than fight it. You start recognizing which pains are temporary and which require care. You understand that your body communicates, and you must interpret its messages clearly. Slowly, your threshold changes. What once felt unbearable becomes normal. What once scared you becomes manageable. Your endurance grows, not because you are fearless, but because you understand the cost of fear. Even the experienced fighters bear scars. Some have deep lines along their arms or shoulders, reminders of past matches. Others carry old injuries that ache during cool mornings. Yet they continue. Watching them gives you a clearer sense of what this life demands, and what it can create, resilience that feels almost unfamiliar. There is a quiet understanding among the men who train beside you. Pain is part of the craft. It is not celebrated, but it is undeniable. And learning to work through it is one of the most important skills you will ever acquire. Night often brings the sharpest awareness of injury. Muscles stiffen, bruises darken. You feel the consequence of the day in every movement, but you also feel another sensation. The knowledge that you survived this day and you will likely survive the next. What surprises you most is how capable your body becomes when your mind stops resisting the discomfort. Many trainees discover strength they didn't know they possessed. They learn the difference between pain that signals danger and pain that marks growth. In time, you begin to understand the philosophy behind the training. You are not being prepared to avoid pain. You are being trained to operate through it. This is the discipline that separates a trainee from a true gladiator. Skill is vital. Speed is important. Strategy matters. But none of it can function if you freeze when struck, or panic when tired, or collapse under the weight of fear. And now, slowly, you feel yourself changing. Your mind steadier, your reactions sharper, your tolerance higher, not because the world around you has grown easier, but because you have grown harder, more controlled, more capable of withstanding what lies ahead. You are not yet ready for the arena, but the school recognizes in you a shift, the resilience that begins to define a gladiator's spirit. Life in the Ludus teaches you the movements of combat, but it is the structure surrounding the arena that reveals how a gladiator's fate is truly decided. The influence begins with the lanista, the head of your training school and the legal owner of your contract. Roman law gave him complete authority over every fighter under his roof. He negotiated match fees, accepted or declined invitations to events, and determined how each gladiator would be presented to the public. You see him often in the training yard, not to offer encouragement, but to assess. A precise strike, a steady stance, a controlled exchange. He notices all of it. Your value, in his eyes, rises or falls with every improvement or mistake. In the ancient world, a gladiator was an investment, and investments were managed carefully. Above the lanista stands a different kind of power, the editor of the games. The editor may be a local magistrate, a wealthy patron, or even an emperor. He finances the event, sets its tone, and oversees every match. Inscriptions from across the empire show that hosting games was a proven way to gain political favor and public admiration. From the editor's seat, above the arena floor, he holds the authority to grant mercy or demand death. When a gladiator falls and requests missio, the editor considers the fighter's performance, his reputation, and the reaction of the crowd. And the crowd's voice matters more than you expect. Roman spectators were not random onlookers. They were educated in the language of combat. Graffiti recovered from Pompeii reveals the names of fan favorites, complaints about poor performances, and support for fighters who demonstrated bravery or technical skill. When tens of thousands react at once, their approval or disapproval becomes impossible to ignore. A well-executed parry, a courageous advance, a controlled strike, these moments win support. Hesitation, retreat, or visible fear rarely earn sympathy. In the arena, your technique is judged not only by one opponent, but by the entire city. Economics form another layer of influence. Before any bout, the editor pays the lanista a fee for each fighter used in the spectacle. If a gladiator dies, Roman contracts require the editor to compensate the school again for the loss of valuable property. This financial penalty often protects skilled fighters and discourages unnecessary executions. Experienced gladiators, whose training represents years of investment, are especially preserved. The lanista expects them to fight many times, not fall in a single contest. Money also shapes matchmaking. Some pairs draw larger crowds, generate more wages, or create rivalries that boost the reputation of both fighters and schools. Your eventual opponents will not be chosen randomly. They will be selected according to economics, balance, and public interest. There is also the quieter world of betting, a practice so widespread that ancient writers mention crowds arguing over odds. Even during the opening processions, bets are placed on victory, endurance, and sometimes on the manner in which a match will conclude. You will one day hear your name discussed by men who gamble not on your life, but on your performance. Layer by layer, you begin to see the system surrounding your future. A network of decisions made by owners, officials, and spectators, long before a sword is drawn. Skill shapes your chances. Discipline keeps you alive. But the arena is also a stage for politics, for commerce, and for public judgment. When you eventually take your place beneath the open sky, you will not stand alone. You will stand inside a structure woven from power, expectation, and the eyes of thousands. And in that world, your fate will always be influenced by forces far beyond the sand beneath your feet. Your first match arrives without ceremony. There is no speech, no dramatic moment, only a simple instruction from your trainer that your name has been placed on the roster for the next games. Among gladiators, readiness is measured through discipline, not announcements. On the day itself, you are led with the others through the tunnel system beneath the Colosseum. These passageways exist for a single purpose: to move fighters, attendants, and staging crews efficiently from the school to the arena floor. The air shifts as you walk, from the dust of the training yard to the cool, enclosed stillness of stone corridors. The sound of the crowd above is muffled but constant, a deep vibration that grows stronger the closer you come to the gates. In the preparation chamber, attendants help secure your armor. Helmets are fitted tightly, padding arranged so your vision and hearing stay clear. Shields are strapped to the arm in a way that balances weight with mobility. Your weapon is inspected for proper edge and alignment, ensuring it meets the standards set for regulated combat. The room around you is calm, busy, but not chaotic. Each movement, from tightening a strap to handing over a weapon, follows practiced routine. Every man in this chamber has a job, and every task supports the match that will soon unfold above. Your opponent stands several paces away, preparing under the same silent focus. There is no exchange between you. Professional fighters do not speak before combat. Training teaches restraint, not bravado. When the gate corridor opens, the roar of the arena becomes unmistakable. You step forward into the rising light. The sand beneath your feet is deeper than the training yard, spread fresh to absorb movement and soften heavy impacts. The heat from the open sky settles immediately on the metal of your armor. Across from you, your opponent emerges, each of you marked by style and equipment. Gladiatorial combat is built around balanced pairings: shield against agility, reach against defense, precision against strength. The public understands this system well, and the match before them is more than entertainment. It is a comparison of skill within an agreed structure. Two referees take their positions. Their role is not symbolic. They control spacing, watch for illegal strikes, and intervene if equipment needs adjustment. Their presence is a reminder that gladiator combat, despite its danger, follows defined rules. A horn sounds. The match begins. You do not rush. No trained gladiator does. The first movements are slow, testing distance, weight, and footing. You study the way your opponent shifts his shield, the timing of his breathing, the angle of his blade before a strike. Your first exchange is brief. Shields collide. A controlled attack follows, turned away by practiced defense. The crowd reacts with a wave of sound, recognizing technique even in simple exchanges. You begin to settle into the rhythm. Sand slips beneath your heels if you step too sharply. The helmet narrows your field of vision, forcing you to track motion rather than individual details. Your arms grow steadily warm under the strain of weapon and shield, but training takes over. Timing becomes your greatest ally. You advance only when openings appear. You retreat with measured steps rather than panic. Your opponent tests you again. A feint followed by a strike meant to draw your guard. You answer with a pivot, letting the blow skim past your shoulder. The pace rises. Movements sharpen. Your breathing stays steady inside the confines of the helmet. Every sound, your steps, your heartbeat, the scrape of metal, feels amplified. The turning point comes quietly. A small misjudgment, a shift in footing. Your opponent loses balance by only a fraction, but in a controlled match, a fraction is enough. You respond with clarity. Your blade finds its mark. Not a fatal blow, but a decisive one that forces your opponent to withdraw and reassess. He draws back, lifts his hand, and offers the familiar gesture of surrender. Open, steady, unmistakable. It is the quiet language shared by all fighters, a single motion carrying the weight of discipline and respect. The referee steps forward at once, his staff creating a line between you, a boundary that turns combat back into order. The arena softens around the moment, the intensity folding neatly into ritual. High above, the editor watches with the stillness of a man accustomed to judgment. After a breath of consideration, he extends his arm, granting mercy. A small gesture, yet, within these walls, it holds the force of fate itself. The crowd answers with a wave of sound, not a thunder of excitement, but something steadier, warmer. They are acknowledging craft, precision, and the honesty of a contest fought well. You withdraw from the arena the same way you entered it, without celebration, without display. A fighter's first match is not a moment of triumph, but a confirmation that training holds true under pressure. As you step back into the shadows of the tunnel, the noise fades. Breath returns to normal. The weight of your armor settles across your shoulders in a way that feels strangely grounding. You have fought once. You have followed the rules, faced the structure of the arena, and walked out again. In this world, that alone marks the beginning of a gladiator's real career. Life as a gladiator is defined by routine, discipline, and the constant presence of danger. Yet, within this tightly controlled world, you discover that the human need for affection, for closeness, for desire, for partnership, does not disappear. It adapts, finding places to exist quietly between the demands of training and the expectations of the arena. Inside the ludus, relationships form in subtle ways. Not the deep family-like bonds that shape camaraderie, but private connections built on shared circumstances. You spend long hours with the same men, training, eating, recovering. Some of them remain simply companions in routine. Others draw your attention in a different way. Rome does not forbid intimacy between enslaved people, and a gladiator school rarely interferes unless the arrangement disrupts discipline or focus. A lanista, practical above all else, cares only that you train, perform, and remain reliable. What happens after the lamps dim is often left unspoken. A quiet understanding forms between certain fighters, not dramatic, not romanticized, but real, two people seeking comfort, sharing limited privacy in the corners of the barracks or in side rooms where attendants store water jars and linen. These encounters are shaped more by proximity and shared pressure than by declarations of love, yet they provide something meaningful in a life ruled by structure. Alongside these private connections, there are also more formal arrangements. If you are enslaved, you cannot enter legal marriage. But Rome recognizes contubernium, an unofficial partnership between two enslaved people who choose to share their lives as much as the situation allows. Some gladiators live this way with partners assigned to domestic work within the ludus compound, sharing small, carved-out moments between duties. Others maintain such partnerships with people outside the school, visiting on approved rest days and building a semblance of family around the rigid schedule of training. Free gladiators live differently. If you volunteered or purchase freedom later, marriage becomes possible again. Some fighters leave the arena behind to build homes with spouses, raising children who know the arena only as a distant story. Desire also reaches you from outside. Rome's fascination with gladiators is well documented, and you feel it long before you understand it. Notes are left at the gates. Admirers wait after processions, hoping to speak to someone whose presence on the arena floor blurred the line between danger and spectacle. Women from wealthy families have been known to arrange private meetings with fighters. Despite the disapproval their households would show if the encounters were discovered, Roman poets describe this attraction clearly, a mixture of curiosity, thrill, and admiration for physical strength that polite society pretends not to encourage. Men of influence show interest as well. Some seek companionship. Others offer patronage, a support system that might include gifts, improved equipment, or financial assistance. A powerful admirer can shape a fighter's trajectory subtly, with better trainers, privileges within the school, or even the chance of manumission. Children are possible, less common, but not rare. A gladiator's life is uncertain, but families do exist on the edges of this world, anchored by partners who understand the risks and choose to stay. Whether formed inside the barracks, in small rented rooms near the training grounds, or in private meetings arranged quietly outside the arena, your romantic life is shaped by circumstances as much as emotion. It grows in spaces the schedule does not control, held together by shared understanding rather than grand promises. You come to understand something quietly. Even in a life built around combat, people still reach for connection. Desire finds its way through discipline. Affection appears in moments no one expects. And for a gladiator, whether enslaved, contracted, or free, love exists not in the sweeping gestures of stories, but in the simple, private moments that make the world beyond the arena feel human again. Freedom in the world of gladiators is neither mythical nor mysterious. It exists as a real, structured destination, a point that every fighter can see, even if few ever reach it. The path is defined by a single object, the rudis, a smooth wooden sword held upright before a departing fighter. It carries no blade, no threat, only the authority of release. In Roman law, it transforms a man from property into someone who walks on his own terms. Inside the lotus, the conditions for earning it are not spoken with ceremony, but they are understood. A fighter must withstand seasons of matches, not merely by surviving, but by proving discipline, reliability, and strength that does not falter when crowds fill the arena. The lanista tracks these things without flourish. He watches a man's record, the steadiness of his conduct, and the confidence he brings into the yard. His decisions carry weight, because releasing a skilled fighter means parting with someone in whom the school has invested years of training, equipment, medical care, and reputation. Within the barracks, certain signs mark a fighter who is close to the end of his service. He is trusted with demonstrations during instruction. His place in the yard shifts subtly, no longer only a student, but a reference point others look toward. The lanista includes him in discussions about training schedules or upcoming events. Nothing about these shifts is ceremonial, yet they form a quiet language all fighters understand. The path, however, is rarely smooth. Injury can interrupt a man's progression as severely as a lost match. A single misstep on the sand may require weeks of recovery and the rebuilding of momentum. Festivals, too, can delay release. If the city requests the presence of a crowd favorite, the school answers the call, and the rudis is set aside until obligations are fulfilled. Influence can change destinies as well. Some fighters attract patrons who admire their skill or persona. A wealthy supporter can negotiate release, paying the lanista directly for the years invested. In other cases, an editor grants the rudis publicly during a major game, using the moment to elevate his status in the eyes of the crowd. For enslaved men, the rudis alters the structure of their lives entirely. They emerge as freedmen, able to marry legally, own property, and earn wages. Some stay near the arena districts, opening workshops or taverns in the lively streets surrounding the amphitheatre. Others move to towns where their skills in metalwork, construction, or labour provide a steadier life than the arena ever offered. For volunteers, free men who signed contracts to join the games, the Rudies closes their agreement. It allows them to retire, to teach, to travel between festivals, or to simply step away from combat altogether. A few choose to return to the arena by choice, fighting as independent professionals. Their terms are clearer, their wages are higher, their risks are self-directed. Freedom turns the arena from obligation into profession. As your own strength settles into new certainty, and the routines of the ludus grow familiar, the idea of freedom takes on shape. It does not sit distant on the horizon anymore. It stands as a destination, delayed by circumstance perhaps, but aligned with every skill you refine and every match you complete. There are nights when the barracks is quiet, when the torches burn low, and only the soft echoes of Rome drift across the walls. In that stillness, the thought of walking through the gates, without armor or fear, carrying nothing but a wooden sword that ends one life and begins another, feels clear, steady, attainable. The Rudis is not given for being exceptional. It is given for enduring the world that shaped you for the arena and for meeting it without stepping aside. The promise of freedom is not a hope. It is a destination carved into the structure of the life you now live. And each day in the sand brings that destination closer. A match ends the moment the referee raises his staff. Whether you stand or fall, the arena follows a sequence older than the school itself. A series of tasks carried out with practiced clarity. When you survive the bout, you are escorted from the arena by attendants who move you quickly through the tunnel so the sand can be prepared for the next pair. But when a fighter dies, the path is different, and every man in the ludus knows what that looks like. The procedures begin the same way. The defeated fighter is taken to the spoliarium. This chamber serves as the sorting point for every combatant who leaves the sand. Today, you walk through it. On other days, you hear the scrape of a body being dragged across the stone floor, and know someone else will not return to the yard. A clerk records each outcome on a wax tablet. His notes for the dead are brief: the fighter's name, his style, the nature of the wound, and the editor's final decision. A mark is then made beside the fighter's value, because death is not only an event, it is a financial consequence, and the editor must pay compensation to the lanista for the loss of trained property. Next, the capsarii remove the dead fighter's armor. This is done quickly, because the equipment must be assessed and recovered before degradation sets in. Helmets are polished later. Shields are repaired. Weapons are rebalanced. Everything is reused unless it is too damaged to save. After the equipment is removed, the body is placed on a bench for examination. A medicus inspects the wound not to save the man, that decision is no longer relevant, but to confirm the exact nature of the fatal blow for the official record. There is no ceremony here, only verification. Once inspected, the body is taken to an area where families or owners may claim it if they have the means and desire to do so. Some bodies are retrieved by relatives who pay to bury their kin with proper rites. Others are unclaimed, especially if the fighter was an enslaved foreigner with no family in Rome. Unclaimed bodies are often handled by undertakers contracted by the city. Their burials carried out in simple pits beyond the walls. You see most of this only in passing. A stretcher carried through the corridor, a figure under a cloth, the dull tone of attendants speaking quietly as they complete their tasks. Death is not hidden, but it is not dramatized either. It is a function of the system, and the system moves on. When you fall but survive, the procedure is more detailed. Armor is inspected as usual, but you are then taken to the medicus for immediate treatment. He cleans cuts with vinegar, probes wounds with steady hands, and applies herbal mixtures, designed to reduce swelling and keep infection at bay. Broken bones are set. Bruises are checked for deeper damage. Everything is examined with a precision that comes from tending to fighters constantly. Afterward, you bathe in warm water to wash away sand and blood, and only then report to the Lannister's chamber. He reviews the notes from the clerk and medicus, evaluates the nature of your defeat, and decides how your training will shift before your next match. Some defeats result in increased technical drills. Others lead to enforced rest. A few are acknowledged quietly for the quality of the performance, despite the final outcome. When you return to the barracks, the school absorbs you back into its rhythm. Survival places you among the living. The dead are spoken of briefly and then folded into memory, not out of cruelty, but because the arena demands. Attention for the present, not the past. The reality is simple. Defeat always leads into the same well-worn sequence of steps. Death, in this world, is not hidden behind curtains or softened with ritual inside the training grounds. It is processed, recorded, handled, and then the next fighter enters the tunnel. Whether you fall in combat or walk out beneath the sun, the world of the gladiator continues moving around you with the same steady rhythm that has governed it for generations. The amphitheater rests beneath the night sky, its corridors empty, its sand untouched. The ludus stands alongside it, the training yard silent, the wooden posts standing like unlit markers of everything the day demanded. Here, in this stillness, the life of the gladiator settles back into its place within history. A system of discipline and record-keeping, of skill and danger, of politics and economy, woven through the fabric of Rome's public life. Your passage through that world now becomes part of its long archive. The drills you learned, the matches you fought, the routines that shaped you, and the quiet moments that followed each day's end. For some fighters, The future leads to a rudis, a wooden sword held upright as a sign that service is complete and a new life can begin. Others remain in the ludus as instructors or specialists, carrying forward the knowledge they once used to survive. A few travel the provinces, fighting or demonstrating skills at festivals, their craft continuing far from the city that trained them. Different paths, but all beginning at the same gates and disappearing eventually into a world much wider than any arena. Night folds over Rome, softening the city into shadow. This is where the story settles, in silence, in dim torchlight, in the calm that follows everything the day required. And now, friend, thank you for walking this path tonight, for stepping into the training yard, for standing beneath the arches of the arena, for witnessing the life of a gladiator with steady curiosity and an open mind. You followed the story to its final moment. Nothing more is asked of you now. The torch is dim, the sand is still, and the ancient world draws back into the quiet of the night. Let the calm settle around you. Let your breath ease. Let whatever weight you carried into this story fall gently away. Rest well, friend. Sleep deeply. The world of Rome grows distant, and you drift softly into dreams.